Do you remember back in the day when screen to body ratio was one of those like headlining numbers in a new smartphone presentation? Like I remember for a couple of years in a row, bezels were getting smaller and smaller, so those numbers got closer and closer to that magical 100%. And everybody generally agreed that less bezels equals better. The higher the screen to body number, the better we were doing, it was improving. But then we started to come up against the limits of display technology. So that's when we had to start getting creative with things like the Xiaomi Mi Mix phones. You remember those? And then phones with curved edges like Samsung started doing for a couple of years with that whole waterfall display thing to make it feel like you had almost no bezels at all on the sides of the phone. And we even got all the way to that concept phone, the Xiaomi Mi Mix Alpha, where the display curved all the way around to the back, so they technically got to say they had an over 100% screen to body ratio. It was a pretty interesting time. Now we later, of course, realized that we were getting a little bit carried away, and there are actually some downsides to curving the displays over the edges, less durable, more reflections, accidental touches, all this stuff. So, the curved edges started to go away. And these days we seem to have settled on like 1 to 2 millimeter bezels all the way around a smartphone screen. Like that's just how premium phones all look now. It's gotten so good that some people will actually see a phone that looks like this and leave a comment like this, saying the thickness of these bezels is unacceptable, which has always, to me, felt a little bit ridiculous. Like I see it as people complaining about something that they were never going to buy anyway. But fast forward to 2026, and I get an email from a company called Tecno who wants to show their 0 millimeter bezel concept phone. All right. I'll bite. So I said yes, it showed up, and here it is. This is a big premium smartphone with a 6.7-inch display and 0 bezels, corner to corner, edge to edge, nothing but display. Well, actually, okay, hang on a second. Is it truly 0 bezels? Like I'm sure a lot of you are looking at this and thinking, okay, if it was truly 0 bezels, wouldn't I just be holding basically just a screen right now? I feel like you can see some silver around it. How is it 0 bezels? And I know that you're thinking that because that's what I was thinking when I first took it out of the box. But what we're actually looking at here all the way around the screen is the literal frame of the phone. And we talk about the frames on these phones all the time, this silver, the metal. This phone clearly does have a silver mid-frame all the way around it, but that is not the same thing as the thin black bezel that typically surrounds a display. So like here's the Pixel 11 Pro. You can see the black is the display's bezel, and then the metal is the frame. So clearly, okay, now you can see that there's a difference between a normal premium phone and this 0 millimeter bezel. Now the secret, the way they're achieving this, is with internal display stacking. So it's a flat screen, but holding this, you'll actually notice the frame is slightly higher up. It's slightly raised up from the display itself all the way around. So you can feel the edge of it with your finger. And of course, straight on, that means you don't see any bezel. So you can say, yeah, 0 millimeter bezel. But if you tilt it really far to an angle, or I imagine if you peeled this frame off of this display, you'd see a tiny little bit of bezel hidden underneath here. Unfortunately, this little edge kind of breaks the immersion of using a full screen device more than any tiny bezel probably would, just because now every time I swipe, especially from the top to get to notifications or from the bottom to go home, my finger drags along that edge. So it looks amazing, clearly, but I feel like actually using the phone, weirdly, I'd prefer to have a little bit of bezel and have smooth edges rather than having no bezel but having to feel the edge, this rough edge every time. And I think that answers the big question of why this is a concept phone and not a real phone that they plan on shipping. Because the rest of the specs are solid. It's a nice display, it's nice and bright, 144 hertz. There's triple cameras back there. It's a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. And it's super lightweight to the point where it almost feels like one of those plastic dummy phones with no internals. It's kind of surreal. Surely all the YouTube commenters hating on bezels would love to try something like this, right? I mean, they'd probably also still want to see that hole punch camera turn into an under display selfie camera. But still, this is form over function. It turns out you actually need a little bit of bezel, at least with today's display tech, to be able to have that smooth experience using a phone and not drag your finger over an edge. And also to put a case on the phone and not have the case overlap onto the display itself. This is more for Tecno to be able to say they did something unique. I looked on the press release on their website, and it says, this breakthrough on the Tecno next-gen bezel-less concept phone is much more than a design upgrade. It redefines how users will interact with their phones in the AI era by removing visual barriers between digital content and the real world. I would say relax. They're hyping themselves up. I get it. Surely this video is feeding into that too. But you know what I didn't find on that press release that they should be hyping up more? When I first took this out the case, I unboxed it and I pulled it out of this bubble wrap sleeve. And the first thing I noticed was the back of this phone. And fun fact, the back of this phone, arguably more visually interesting than the front. They didn't say much about it in any of the press releases, but it's like this holographic 3D butterfly wing type of thing. It looks to my eye like it's actually coming off of the back of the phone. You're gonna have to take my word for it because it's extremely difficult to capture on camera, but I swear this is one of the best lenticular lens effects I've ever seen with my own eyes. It's absolutely insane. So if they do ever ship a phone like this, they definitely need to make a clear case for it because it's crazy. Either way, now you know. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.